Did you kill her, yes or no? Just straight up.
No.
Not a 9 times out of 10, not a maybe, not a probably.
10 out of 10,
Tell me right now that you did not kill her.
No.
Tell me right now that you did not kill her.
I did not kill her.
You do not know anything about who killed her?
No.
Okay, cool. Jerome, you're being charged with murder.
It could be Scotty.
Okay.
I don't know. I know I didn't.
We'll be in later to arrest you.
A man sits alone in a small room, no windows, one door, a table between 2 empty chairs. He has been in this room for hours. He has told detectives the same story more than once. He was not there. He was somewhere else, miles away, the whole night. Then the door closes, and for the first time he is by himself. He stands up. He looks at the ceiling. What happens next was caught on camera by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. A murder suspect, left alone in an interrogation room, tries to climb out through the ceiling tiles above him. He does not get far. Officers open the door before he can pull himself through, and he is handcuffed on the spot. This is Bercy Armstrong. And by the time this video became public, he had already told investigators 2 different stories about the night Tasheka Young was killed. To understand why a man would try to escape through a ceiling rather than answer one more question, you have to go back. Back past the interrogation room, past the arrest, past the search warrant that turned up a gun buried in his parents' backyard. You have to go back to who Tasheka Young was, and to a relationship that, from the outside, did not look like it was heading anywhere near this room. You're watching morbid true crime, psychological true crime documentaries examining the decisions, evidence, and behavior behind real criminal cases.
She was found dead in her apartment here behind me. They tell me that she loved unconditionally, and they also say she was ambitious. They also tell me they were trying to help her get away from Armstrong for years.
We kept telling her to leave. We knew it was coming, but we didn't, it just when it came, it just really hurt.
Felicia Thompson talked to her friend Tasheka Young the night before she was killed.
She was a sister, a friend, a mom, a daughter. She was our world. It's just like so many of us that knew what was going on tried to save her.
When you're deep in love and you are blinded by love, you can't see those things. So you kind of push them away and underneath the covers.
Tasheka Young was 34 years old. In Jacksonville, Florida, a lot of people knew her voice before they knew her name.
With that station, I am in the studio with Faith Evans and Lil Cease. How are you guys doing?
For years, she was on the air at Power 106.1, a hip-hop and R&B station, using the name Sheeks.
What's poppin', yo? It's your girl Tasheka. Right now, I am live on location at Orange Park Mall.
Later, she left radio for the classroom and became a teacher. She had graduated from Bethune-Cookman University with a degree in broadcasting, and by all accounts, she had built a life people admired: steady work, a public presence, a wide circle of friends. At the time of her death, Tasheka was the mother of 2 toddlers. She was also 4 months pregnant with a 3rd child. The father of her children was a man named Bercy Armstrong, Jr. Their relationship had gone on for years, on and off. Friends described it later, in court and to reporters, in careful terms: complicated, strained, not something anyone outside the relationship fully understood. What is documented is this: by the summer of 2022, something between them had shifted, and neighbors in her apartment building would later say they heard it happen. People who knew Tasheka professionally remembered her as someone who made time for others, even when her own schedule didn't allow for it. Friends and former colleagues, including fellow radio personality Mark Dixon, known on air as DJ Nails, spoke about her after her death as someone who was easy to be around and hard to forget. The kind of coworker who checked in on people, not just the kind who was liked by an audience. That reputation followed her out of radio and into the classroom, where she'd built an entirely second career teaching children. People who knew Tasheka describe a woman who kept showing up. She kept working. She kept raising her kids. She kept being, as her friends would later put it, the person other people leaned on. Her mother, Olivia Young, has said that she and her daughter spoke every single day. Not most days. Every day. That detail matters because it's the reason anyone found Tasheka at all. There was one detail that investigators would return to later, sourced to Olivia Young's own account to police, that roughly 2 weeks before her daughter was killed, Bercy Armstrong had held a gun to Tasheka's head. That claim comes from a mother describing what her daughter told her, not from a courtroom finding. And it should be understood that way, as one woman's account of a warning sign, not a proven fact on its own. But taken together with what would happen weeks later, it is the kind of detail that, in hindsight, investigators could not ignore. Whatever was happening inside that relationship, it was not visible to the people around Tasheka in any way that raised alarms. She kept going to work. She kept talking to her mother. Nothing about her routine, on the surface, suggested she was afraid. On the night of July 23, 2022, a neighbor in the apartment below Tasheka's unit, at Mission Point Apartments in North Jacksonville, heard what she would later describe to a 911 dispatcher, and again on the witness stand almost 2 years later. She heard a bedroom door burst open. She heard things falling to the floor. She heard a woman upstairs, crying, screaming, say, "Please no, I love you, I love you." Then she heard children screaming. Then, according to court testimony, one gunshot. The prosecutor who tried the case, Assistant State Attorney Sheila Loizos, would later tell a jury that Tasheka's last words were, "Please, please, don't do this. I love you."
Please, please don't do this. I love you.
Loizos said those words were followed by a shot and that Tasheka died on her bedroom floor.
Those words were followed by one shot, and Miss Young died right there on her bedroom floor from a shot in the back.
Tasheka's front door had been kicked in. Whoever came through it did not knock. Her 2 young children, a toddler and a preschooler, were in the apartment when it happened. Olivia Young called her daughter the next day, the way she did every day. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. By the account investigators later pieced together, close to 12 hours passed between the gunshot the neighbor heard and the moment Tasheka's mother arrived at the apartment to check on her. What Olivia Young found there is not something this documentary will describe in detail. What matters for the investigation is this. Her daughter was gone, and her 2 grandchildren were still in the apartment with her. One detail from that morning would follow the case all the way to trial. According to people close to the investigation, Tasheka's young son told his grandmother and later officers that Daddy hurt Mommy. A 3-year-old is not a witness in the legal sense, but it was a starting point. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office detectives arrived to a scene that told them 2 things immediately. This had not been a break-in by a stranger, and the person responsible likely knew this apartment and this family well. While officers were still processing the scene, Bercy Armstrong showed up. Investigators brought him in for questioning. This is the interrogation that would end with him trying to leave through the ceiling. In that recorded interview, Armstrong told detectives he had not been anywhere near the apartment that night. He said he was in Middleburg, a town outside Jacksonville, the whole time.
Besides the obvious, huh?
I didn't do that.
You didn't do that?
No.
And you don't know who did?
No, I never went back to her apartment.
You never went back to her apartment?
No, my mom picked me up, and I've been in Middleburg since.
Just to clarify, you haven't gone back to her apartment since when?
Since last Saturday, probably.
That was that Wednesday through Friday that we had talked about, I think we had said, from last week.
This whole entire week, I haven't seen her, and I think that I arrived in Middleburg on... You know what? I might have been in Middleburg for the past 2 weeks. I might have been in Middleburg for the past 2 weeks.
Right.
I can't... My mom, she can tell you when she picked me up.
Detectives kept talking to him. Hours passed. At some point, they left him alone in the room, and that is when the footage everyone would later see was recorded. Armstrong stood, looked up, and tried to climb through the ceiling panels above him. Officers were back in the room within seconds. He did not get out. What happened after that moment is, in some ways, more revealing than the escape attempt itself. Armstrong's story changed. He told detectives that he had given a gun to someone else, that this other person had asked to hold it, and that he had, in his words, rented the weapon to him. He gave detectives no name and no explanation for why he'd want anyone else to have that gun, or why that mattered to the case against him. No second suspect was ever charged.
I haven't been there since last Saturday.
Okay.
So.
Then who'd you give that gun to go?
I didn't give it to anybody. I mean, I just, guy gave me like $100. He wanted to hold it, and then he returned it to me.
When was that?
He returned it to me maybe. I don't really think so.
So he has no reason to kill her. That's stupid. Stop.
I think he knows in passing, but I don't think, because I don't stay out there.
The case that went to trial was built against Armstrong alone. Detectives obtained a search warrant for a home in Middleburg belonging to Armstrong's parents. The same town he'd claimed to be in that night. It's where he had been staying. Behind the house, under the back steps, investigators found freshly disturbed earth. Underneath it, a Glock 9mm handgun. Nearby, they recovered clothing with blood on it. When detectives asked Armstrong why a gun had been buried behind his parents' home, he had no answer for them.
Why'd you bury it in the dirt then?
I just left it back there. Anything like that, my mom doesn't like stuff like that in the house.
She's got her own guns. She likes guns. Everyone in your house has guns.
She doesn't like me to have a gun on my person though.
Do you care about your mom? You don't care about your mom?
Yeah, my mom.
She hit the floor when she saw us unearth that gun. She hit the floor.
My mom isn't guilty of anything.
I know that.
Yeah, you
are.
She broke down because she knows you are pure evil.
How are you going to explain there's blood on those clothes that were hidden with that gun that's your size clothing? Explain that one.
I don't have any blood on anything. I don't have any blood on
So
anything.
Now it's just from lying to denying?
I haven't been.
Separately, investigators pulled toll records for a vehicle connected to Armstrong. Those records placed the car on routes matching the timeline detectives were building from Jacksonville to Middleburg in the hours after Tasheka was killed. None of this, on its own, closes a case. Investigators still needed to connect the buried gun, the bloody clothing, and the toll records into a single, coherent account of what happened inside that apartment. But taken together, a suspect who couldn't explain a buried weapon, a story about the night that kept shifting, and a documented route matching the timeline, it was enough for Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to move forward.
How did the bullet from the guns that Scotty gave you that you hid in the dirt in your mom's yard, how did one of those same bullets get in your mom's car? The same car that she gave you a ride in.
I'm not sure.
The same car that you snuck out the other night to go kill.
I mean, if I had extra bullets from that gun, then that's just that. That's probably.
When was the last time you drove that Volvo?
I've never driven it.
Never?
No, I don't drive at all. She picked me up in it She picked me up in that Volvo the day when she picked me up.
Again.
On July 24th, 2022, one day after Tasheka Young was killed, Bercy Armstrong Jr. was arrested and charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. One charge was for Tasheka. The second was for her unborn child.
Tonight, the man charged with killing a popular local radio personality, now also charged with killing his unborn child. According to Bercy Armstrong's arrest warrant, he shot and killed his children's mother, Tasheka Young, about 3 weeks ago. Friends say Young was 4 months pregnant with her 3rd child with Armstrong. On your side's Kaylee Tracy talked with an attorney about how common the second murder charge is in a situation like this today.
A judge denied him bond, citing what the court described as substantial probable cause. He was arraigned that August and pleaded not guilty. For close to 2 years, the case moved through pretrial proceedings. In March 2023, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office released the interrogation footage publicly, the video of Armstrong's attempted escape through the ceiling. It became, for many people following the case locally, the single image most associated with it, months before a jury would ever hear the evidence. There is something worth sitting with in the footage of that interrogation room. Armstrong did not run for a door. He looked up. He chose the one direction nobody was watching. Detectives who conduct these interviews often say the same thing. What a suspect does when he thinks no one is looking tells you more than anything he says while someone is. For hours, Armstrong had given detectives a calm, consistent denial. Alone, with nothing left to perform for, he tried to disappear through a ceiling tile. It doesn't prove guilt on its own, but it is the kind of behavior investigators pay close attention to. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's involuntary. Nobody plans an escape route through drop ceiling panels. It's not a strategy. It's what's left when a story runs out. There's a pattern to how these interviews tend to go. A suspect who is telling the truth usually settles the longer he talks. The story gets simpler, not more complicated, because there's nothing underneath it to manage. Armstrong's account moved the other way. It started as a flat denial, then became a story about a second person and a rented gun, then ended with him standing on a chair, looking for a way out that didn't involve answering another question. Each version added more to explain, not less. That shape, a story that keeps growing instead of settling, is often what tells detectives they're getting further from the truth, not closer to it. Bercy Armstrong's trial began in July 2024, almost exactly 2 years after Tasheka's death. Jurors heard from the downstairs neighbor who called 911. They heard from Olivia Young. They heard from a Jacksonville Sheriff's Office officer who walked them through the physical evidence. The kicked-in door, the buried gun, the bloody clothing, the toll records. Prosecutor Sheila Loizos told the jury that Tasheka's final words were a plea for her life, followed by the gunshot that killed her.
Please, please don't do this. I love you. Those words were followed by one shot, and Miss Young died right there on her bedroom floor from a shot in the back. Now, how do we know her last words, and how do we know what happened? Well, downstairs, she had a neighbor, Travonia Ward. And this Ward had gotten up around 1 o'clock in the morning because she had to feed her 9-month-old baby. And while she was getting the bottle ready, she heard what she describes as angry, stomping, heavy steps going up the stairs. She then hears what sounds like the door being busted into. And then she hears those angry steps stomping down the hallway towards the bedroom. And again, she knows this because that's the layout of her apartment. No words, no discussion. She hears one shot that sounds like a shot. And then she said...
The defense, led by attorney Chuck Fletcher, reminded jurors of the burden the state carried. That if prosecutors had not proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury was obligated to acquit. Text messages between Tasheka and Armstrong were shown to the jury. Some of what they revealed was tension, arguments, according to prosecutors, that had grown increasingly hostile in the weeks before her death. But the messages weren't one note. Some showed the two of them talking about getting back together. In one exchange, Tasheka reportedly told Armstrong that he was supposed to love her, not hurt her. That contradiction, reconciliation and warning signs sitting side by side in the same phone, is in many ways the emotional center of this case. It's a pattern people who study relationship violence recognize. The pull back together happening at the same time as the pull toward danger. Neither side of that tension was hidden from the jury. Both were part of the record. Over the course of the trial, prosecutors walked jurors through the physical case piece by piece, rather than asking them to take any single piece of evidence on faith. The 911 call was played in full, so jurors heard the same words the neighbor had described. The door, the struggle, the plea, the gunshot, the children crying. The search warrant photographs from the Middleburg property were shown alongside testimony about the freshly turned soil under the back steps. And the toll records were laid out as a timeline on their own, showing a vehicle connected to Armstrong moving between Jacksonville and Middleburg in the hours after Tasheka was killed. No single piece of evidence was presented as the whole case. Prosecutors built the timeline the way investigators had built it, one confirmed detail at a time, until the pieces pointed in only one direction. On July 17, 2024, the jury returned its verdict, guilty on both counts. guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Tasheka Young, guilty of second-degree murder in the death of her unborn child. Outside the courtroom, family members who had waited 2 years for this moment were seen crying, not from surprise, but from relief. Tasheka's cousin, Anthony Cobb, described it to a local reporter as bittersweet. 2 lives lost, but justice finally delivered. Bercy Armstrong Jr. was sentenced on August 22, 2024. Judge Tatiana Salvador handed down a mandatory sentence of life in prison on both counts, with credit for the time he had already spent in custody awaiting trial, 761 days.
I will sentence you as follows. As to counts 1 and 2, I will adjudicate you guilty of each count. And on each of counts 1 and 2, I am going to sentence you to life in prison with a life minimum mandatory, with credit for the 761 days that you have served, and those 2 sentences shall run consecutively. I will impose mandatory felony court costs of $518. I have entered the restitution order in the amount of $7,500 payable to the victim's.
During the sentencing hearing, as Tasheka's mother delivered her victim impact statement, Armstrong reportedly interrupted her. It was one final moment, in a courtroom 2 years removed from that interrogation room, where his composure did not hold. What separates this case from a simple domestic tragedy is how much of it was caught on record. A 911 call with a woman's last words audible in the background, a toddler's account to his grandmother, a search warrant that turned up a weapon someone tried to hide in the ground, and a piece of interrogation footage that, more than anything said in that room, showed exactly what a suspect does when he believes the walls are closing in. None of it brings back what 2 children lost that night or the 3rd sibling who was never born. What the record shows is a sequence: denial, contradiction, a buried gun, a ceiling tile, that investigators followed until it left no other explanation standing. Tasheka Young was a voice a lot of people in Jacksonville grew up listening to. In the end, it was the voice of a 3-year-old and the account of a mother who called every single day that helped make sure her case was never left unresolved. Thank you for watching Morbid True Crime. If you'd like to see more documentary investigations examining the psychology and evidence behind real criminal cases, subscribe. New cases are covered every week.